It's been described by, I think, the Vancouver Police Chief as one of the darkest days for Vancouverites. As a former police officer, I've been to crime scenes, and I can only imagine what it's like to be there, seeing the mayhem. We're here to grieve with you because of your safety and safety of everyone in our province will always come first to this government. Following the tragic incident, we commissioned a report by former Chief Justice Hickson to support local governments, event organizers, and public safety officials for future to provide clear, practical guidance to ensure future community events are safe this summer and beyond. Today, these recommendations are being made public. I want to thank Commissioner Hickson and his team for their comprehensive work. This work was completed following extensive consultation across communities, event planners, law enforcement, including the VPD, municipalities, and Indigenous organizations. And they offer clear, practical ways moving forward to enhance safety and security for community events. More importantly, tangibly, it provides new resources and tools that event organizers throughout the province can use right away, and they include two main components: an event safety plan template that we can actually utilize, and a risk assessment framework to understand what risk assessment we have to address. These best practices are drawn from research and can be used right away across the province, large cities, urban centers, or small communities in other areas. It's important to understand, in light of the tragic event, and easy to be overwhelmed by emotions, as many of us are or were, that the report said that the vast majority of public events in this province are safe, they're well organized, and they're widely enjoyed. I couldn't count how many events I go to every year, meeting people across the LMD, the Lower Mainland, across the province. As a matter of fact, this weekend, is going to be Chinatown Festival. I mean, many people are going to go down to enjoy the festivals. In the city of Vancouver, there are over 2,000 public events every year, just held in just the city alone. And people enjoy that. People enjoy meeting your neighbors, your communities, going out there and live what it means to be a Vancouverite, to be an urban dweller, or to belong to your city and a sense of belonging to your province. And we're really proud of that, and nothing should ever change that. Now, this is a strong foundation for what's to come, but of course there's more work to be done. We have to continue bringing people together across sectors and government and share our best practice and build lasting relationships to make sure that we continue to be safe in the events that we attend in the future, in this summer and beyond. We have received the report, which is made public, and we accept the intent of the recommendations. And we're working through them to determine how best we can implement them with our partners. This is about keeping people safe, supporting people, maintaining public confidence in the safety of our gatherings with our friends, families, and across the city and across the province. Because everyone deserves and should be safe. That's why I go to work in the morning. And public events, whether they're cultural, sports, festivals, or otherwise, make our communities richer and connect people from all walks of life. They might not be around together or attending the same event otherwise. So we can get together to celebrate. In closing, your government and the province will continue to work to keep people safe. And that is the foundation of today's report. And thank you. I'll now take your questions.
Thank you, Minister. As a reminder for media on the phone, please press *1 to enter the queue. That's *1 to ask a question. For media in the room, please line up at the microphone provided and wait to be called. Please make sure to provide your full name and outlet. Media will be limited to one question and one follow-up. Our first question today is in the room from Penny Dafflos. Please go ahead.
Hey, Minister, it's Penny from CTV. I'm to your right.
Oh,
hi. I know that you said you want to take some time to look at the recommendations, but it seems that the most important one, I think, for event organizers would be the one suggesting a centralized training hub, which could particularly help smaller communities. Is that an area of focus for you? Do you think that that's something you would like to see implemented, and how soon could that happen?
Like I said before, we accept the intent, all the recommendations. There are no big surprises, and they make a lot of sense. So we just have to work with our partners to see how best to implement them within a time frame that's going to be acceptable and tangible to everyone out there.
I know that this was all prompted by the Lapu-Lapu festival tragedy, yet there's nothing really that mentions it in particular in this report. It was specifically excluded because of the court action. Does that mean we should expect further, probes into that particular event, or do you think that this is going to be sufficient?
Well, firstly, I commend the City of Vancouver, in conjunction with the Vancouver Police Department. They commissioned a report to look at the specific incident. The intent of this commission is look at a larger context of the province-wide, not just in the City of Vancouver, not just this event, to look at how can we make future events safer in the context of different municipalities, different scale. Obviously, for example, Pride Parade is going to be a lot bigger than a neighborhood parade in Prince George. So we can apply some of the same lessons learned, but they're not going to be universal. So we're going to have to make sure it's not one size fits all. But this is a larger context of how do we make events across the province safer in future.
For our next question, we're staying in the room. Go ahead.
Hi, Minister. Joe Sadowski with City News Vancouver. In the report, you mentioned that growing costs of security for events is a concern, specifically for smaller events and public gatherings. Is the BC government going to be implementing a support system for that rising cost and security to ensure that they can feel safe at their gatherings as well?
Again, we accept all the intended recommendations. We're going to have to take a look at the implications, what they are. Of course, we're going to do everything we can to support the event organizers. That's why we consulted with extensive event organizers across the board, not just in Vancouver, the LMD, the Lower Mainland, but across the province to look at what their needs are going to be. Absolutely, we're going to have to find a way to make sure that any gaps that we might find out later on by implementing these recommendations are going to be filled.
And you mentioned that you want to restore confidence in the people of British Columbia to make sure that they feel safe coming to public gatherings. Is this report enough, and what more needs to be done to make sure that the people of BC feel safe when they go out to these large-scale events?
Well, that's where you can come to help. I mean, as I mentioned before, there are over 2,000 events in the City of Vancouver every year. Majority of them don't even get coverage. I mean, obviously, it's your neighborhood events. And by the report, it's a vast majority of them are well-attended, well-organized, and they're safe. Obviously, going to the future, we want to make sure we've done everything we can in event planning, in this case, risk assessment, in this case, a template to event organizing, to see what they're about, because every single event is different. And we can't have one solution. I mean, some events might need extensive security measures, and some might not. So those are the things we have to draw a balance. So we're not going to be cost prohibitive. So people will be discouraged in organizing public events due to the cost. But having said that, to make sure there's adequate planning and assessment in place prior to the event.
Chuck Chick with the Canadian Press. Minister, can you provide a timeline of when these recommendations will be implemented? When do you hope to have the hub in place? These resources that are recommended in the report, do you have a specific time that you would like to see these resources available for the communities hosting events going forward?
That's a good question. I mean, the guideline timeframe for the report was 60 days, which was completed by Hickson, Justice Hickson. and we just received the report. And today, after a cabinet meeting, this was made public. So we're going to still go through the fine print and take a look at what are the tangible steps we can actually implement. As I said before, we fully accept the intent and all the recommendations. We just have to work out what's the practical guidelines to work with our partners, be it municipalities, or event organizers, be it in Vancouver, be it up in the North District, how best we can help them with guidance and assessments tools and event planning templates to make sure we can help them. So we're going to move on this as fast as we can. But having said that, we want to make sure we proceed accordingly so we don't miss anything on the way.
And Minister, the recommendations don't have any requirements for local governments or festival organizers to use these resources, merely providing these resources. How confident are you that, in places that festival organizers, municipalities are going to take the province up on these resources in terms of ensuring better safety measures going forward when there's no requirements for them to do so?
Well, in my other job until last summer with the police department in Vancouver, I dealt with a lot of event organizers, and they always will come forward to ask for expert opinion or expertise from law enforcement or from other agencies that's done similar events. So I'm pretty confident the majority of them will come out and actually ask for help or assistance or advice. If not, we can always try to be proactive, but it's kind of hypothetical. But I think I would say, given the resources being offered out there for people to plan a safe event, I can see most event organizers say, well, I don't really want to go through the additional step to ensure that the events are going to be safer.
Hi, Minister Young. Kristen Robinson, Global News. Why weren't City of Vancouver leaders and VPD leadership allowed to or asked to provide specific insight into the Lapu-Lapu Day events to inform Mr. Hinkson's report?
Well, as I said before, there are two parts to that question. First part is, this is a provincial-wide commission, not just to this event. Obviously, it's the aftermath of this tragic incident. The Vancouver Police Department was consulted by the commission. I can give you the specific names later on to make sure this commission's report is informed. I look at the list of names. Other municipalities been in contact. They actually followed extensive consultation for all the event organizers, all the stakeholders. So it's an extensive list. I'll be more than happy to provide that list to you.
Why, just so the public will know, why is, like Chief Constable Steve Rye, why isn't Ken Sim, why aren't they standing with you here today? And my follow-up question is, the VPD already has specific protocols in place for large event safety. Why isn't the province doing a public inquiry into the Lapu-Lapu Day events?
Well, like I said, the intent of this commission is to find recommendations how to hold events across the province, big and small, big cities or small towns in the safer manner. Now, this is not a inquiry into this particular event. Obviously, it's, as I said before, following the aftermath of that. I know the City of Vancouver and the BPD had released a report. They look at the incident in question, and the scope of this is a little wider. It's province-wide. Justice Hickson is actually looking at how we can learn from this and how can we provide valuable resources. I can assure you, members of VPD was consulted by the commission. I can provide you the details later on. So, but I don't speak for the entire. So it's not we just got the report today. So
We can.
Possibly, will there be a public inquiry into the Lapu-Lapu Day events after the court process for the suspect is complete?
Well, as you know, the criminal process is in place, so I'm not going to touch base on whether it may be happening or not. But for the province at this time, I think it's more important that the event this weekend, the events this summer, the ongoing event in 2025 are going to be better planned, well planned, or to ensure that we're safe out there. So that's my scope right now, going through this report, and then we can take a look at that later on. But it's obviously not the intent of this commission.
We're going to head to the phones next. Our first question on the phone is going to go to Katie DeRosa, CBC. Please go ahead.
Minister, why not have funding ready, given, I know you received the report recently, but why not have a fund already up and running, since so many festivals will be happening this summer, that community organizers can tap into to access some of the additional security that is recommended in this report?
It's a good question. I mean, as I said before, we accept all the intended recommendations. So when the specific ask or a tangible ask comes about specifically to a different event or a specific event, we always take that into consideration. So it's hard to really predict what's coming out, but rest be assured that your province, your government is going to make sure that all future events are going to be planned for safer attendance and for people to come and enjoy themselves without fear of something tragic going to happen.
Katie, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, and obviously the retired Chief Justice addressed that, the mental health aspect was not a factor in this report, but is that not a huge oversight, given that some of these incidents are linked to individuals who have mental health struggles, and what is the province doing to ensure that these individuals get help and are not just left on the street to their own devices?
No, thank you. As you know, there's a current Mental Health Act review undertaken by the Ministry of Health, and it's also the province is actually creating secure care, which we made announcements in the past. So that will be part of the larger approach to look at that. Yes, and we are taking steps to doing that.
Our next question is to Alec Lazenby, Vancouver Sun. Please go ahead.
Hi, Minister. One of the things that Justice Hinkson says in this report is that no matter how much planning and preparation there is for these events, it can never be known when on a tragedy like what happened at the Lapu-Lapu Festival is going to occur. Like these vehicle attacks, it's not a one-time thing. It's happened around the world. Specifically for planning for those events, have you any thought into what changes might need to be?
Well, I mean, adhering to adhering to the report, as I said, the two major recommendations that I can relate to are the risk assessment per event specific. The second one is the event planning template. Now, I'm not going to go into the micro operational details I used to do when I plan these events. I mean, you can put in place barriers and traffic control, et cetera, to actually to ensure that events are going to be safe. So safer, and make sure you can plan on every single possibility, but you can actually, by virtue of your planning, comprehensively talking to event organizers, taking a look at the location is specific, taking the nature of the gathering, you can actually take concrete steps to ensure that those events are going to be safer. And that's the intent of this foundation. The foundation of this report is to make sure that British Columbians can have confidence to go to these vast majority of events that are well attended, well organized, and they're safe.
Alec, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, I know the Lapu-Lapu Festival tragedy was specifically excluded from this report, but at the same time, former Justice Hinkson was quite complimentary of the City of Vancouver's planning processes and said that there's, it should be a model for the rest of the province. Given, that tragedy happened in Vancouver, what are your thoughts around what can be done if, Hinkson is coming forward and saying Vancouver already has a fairly comprehensive process?
Well, two parts of that. First of all, I want to commend the City of Vancouver and also the Vancouver Police and doing really extensive good work in planning public events. I mean, as I mentioned before, there are 2,000 public events in Vancouver every year. That's not a small task. And majority of them are well executed, well planned, and well attended. The second part is the intent of this commission, this report, is to look at larger beyond the urban centers. So for small communities across the province, be it a bigger scale, it might not be 4,000 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people like the Celebration of Light, but on a smaller scale, what can we glean from this report on risk assessment per specific for event, or from the event planning template? What can we use right now to help other people and provide us a baseline of professional guidance so they can actually use that to plan?
Our next question is for Emily Javeski, Vista Radio. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my question. So the report raises that there's often, confusion among event planners about who's responsible for what with regards to safety, especially when there's many levels and jurisdictions involved. Do you have any ideas of how the province can address that in relation to events across BC?
Thank you for the question. At the end of the day, depending on how large the scope the event is, it may span more than one municipality. That's why this study comes in to help communities and municipalities across the province. So at the end of the day, I think it's case specific. I think the province is providing the tools and support that we can, and the expertise and the guidelines. We can actually help each individual event to make sure how best to move forward on that planning. So I can't really, I can picture an event, but they're all different.
Emily, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, sorry if this has already been asked. The call cut out for me. But what time frame would you be looking at for adopting these recommendations, and could they possibly be in place by next year's festival season?
Well, thank you for the question. I did answer that, and I said we fully accept the intent of these recommendations. We're working closely with the partners out there with event planners, municipalities, different levels of government, how best to make them work, implement them into realities and practice. So we're hoping to do this as soon as we can, and for future events this summer and in 2025 instead of looking in 2026, because it's never too soon to actually plan effective and safer events for the public to attend, because I'll be going to a lot more events this year, and I want to make sure that we plan those accordingly so your family, your friends, your loved ones, and yourself can go with confidence that you can attend these events and enjoy yourself, be part of the community.
For our next question, we're going to Keith Norbury, BC Today. Please go ahead.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my question. Given the report points out that most festivals, are very safe and you go off without a hitch, how far do you need to go to be able to secure festivals? I mean, I don't think you want to go to a point where it's like going to an airport and you have to go through layers of security. What sort of the balance that you need to strike here that these events rarely happen, and they already are pretty rare, but are even more rare, and doesn't interfere with people's enjoyment of these festivals?
Great question about the balance. I mean, obviously, we can't have extensive security in place without planning. That's why the two key points from this report was the risk assessment specific to each event, and also the event planning template, the tabletop, to look at certain moving parts. You don't want to have to incur extensive cost for an event that would discourage people from organizing that. We do that, we're going to have less than 2,000 events this year because people just can't go through shutting down half the city for an event or for the duration of time, cost and also disruption to the community. So we take that very seriously. We want to work closely with the municipalities, the agencies involved, the planners, the event organizers, the Indigenous community will consult extensively during this report to take a look at what could be done. And we came up with 2 resources right now for this foundation of this report, but we're going to continue to look at it and talk to people along the way. As recent as summer coming up, lots of festivals coming up, celebration of lights, and all those events, making sure that we're going to do apply what we learned from this report and these recommendations.
Keith, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I know that the report specifically doesn't deal with the Lapu-Lapu festival, but it was the genesis of this whole study. And I know you also mentioned you didn't want to get too much into the weeds on the prescriptions, but would not just a requirement that you put up barriers anytime there's a festival on a street, barriers that are difficult, if not impossible, for a vehicle to pass through, wouldn't that, address one of the biggest problems, of safety at these festivals that take over public streets?
Yes, it will, but obviously more security measures are oftentimes better. But having said that, with 2,000 advances in one city alone, sometimes you have more than one events happening in the city simultaneously. So it comes down to resources, cost, disruption. And that's why, once again, I keep going back to the two tools we use, the risk assessment per event and event planning template, because it has to be specific. It depends on what you're planning. And when I'm planning a book sale, I probably don't have to put barriers everywhere, half the city. So I'm just, for an example, putting in context. So you're right. I mean, more security measures, the better, but it has to be specific and applicable and appropriate to what you're trying to hold.
Our final question today goes to Michael Williams, News 1130. Please go ahead.
Hi, Minister Young. Do you believe if these six recommendations had been in place that they would have prevented what happened on the evening of April 26th?
Well, thank you for the question. Once again, this is as commission into looking at what we can do in future, province-wide. It doesn't centralize on one event that happened in the past, which happened. And once again, if I may say, your government and the province will continue to work to keep people safe. Once again, that's why I come to work every morning. That is the foundation of this report. Rather than looking back to one specific moment and day and time, we want to move forward and say, how can we as a province, working with municipalities, police agencies, event organizers, to actually make sure our people are safe when they go, for example, this weekend. I'm going to be out there in Chinatown this weekend. What are we doing as a province, as a municipality, as a police department, as an event organizer? They had the conversation, obviously, before this weekend, to make sure that I can go out there and enjoy myself instead of being really fearful to be outside. And that is why we're here today. And that's the foundation of this whole report, not to look at one moment in time in the past, which we cannot change. I can't speculate what could have happened, but what we can do in future to make us all safer. Thank you.
Michael, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, and Minister Young, just want to clarify something. You're saying, or you said earlier, you just received the report today. Is that correct?
The report was, I saw this report yesterday. Obviously, it just got released, and it went through to the cabinet, and then it was released to the public today. So, yeah, I mean, within the last 24 hours.
So is there a reason why you weren't privy to seeing it? I mean, the province said it had already begun reviewing it in late June. I'm just trying to figure out why you weren't able to get your eyes on it sooner.
Well, I mean, I had some ideas what the recommendation is about, but I haven't actually read the report. There's so many different reports out there, but I did review it at meeting today to make sure that it's being released in its entirety to the public.
That's all the questions we have for today. Thank you, everybody.
That is Minister of State for Community Safety in BC, Terry Young, answering questions about the province's commissioning of a report into public safety events. This report did not specifically cover what happened at the Lapu-Lapu Day festival tragedy in late April of this year, where 11 people were killed and many more injured. It was, according to the minister, a broader look done by the former Chief Justice of BC Supreme Court, Christopher Hinkson, around public safety events. Our Michelle Gassoub also listening into the news conference. Michelle, we now have the recommendations. There are 6. Break them down for us.
Yeah, let's take you through those 6 recommendations. So starting out, there is risk assessment in event planning. So it's saying that regardless of the size of an event and regardless of the location across British Columbia, whether it be in a big community or a small one, there should be a risk assessment in place. And it is also announcing 2 tools under this recommendation. So 1, the event safety plan template, and 2, the risk assessment framework. Those are 2 practical tools that event planners can access in order to determine what needs to be in place for their events. It's also recommending they consider things like environmental factors, crowd management, medical response, so not just the security measures people might have in mind after Lapu-Lapu. Now, recommendation number 2, clarifying jurisdictional roles. It says there can be confusion around who is actually in charge of certain security and safety decisions, especially when multiple levels of government are involved. So it says there needs to be very clear criteria of who is in charge and who is able to make those recommendations. Number 3, and I think this is a really big one, the training, planning, support, and centralized hub. So basically saying there needs to be a provincial hub for accessible, standardized advice, training, and tools, similar to the United Kingdom's purple guide. So this centralized hub where event planners can access those resources, access that training in order to make determinations about safety at events that they're organizing, again, regardless of the location across British Columbia or the size or nature of the event. The number 4, support for event delivery, that is targeted grants and financial support to help offset safety costs. So if an event is determining through the safety assessment that it needs additional security measures to put an event forward safely, it would be able to access financial support to put those in place. Number 5, foster local collaboration, so encouraging work with local police and fire departments, other security resources that exist in communities to ensure they are fully read in on events taking place in the community. And then finally, Dan, that brings us to number 6, learning through event evaluation. So basically having after action reports and structured public feedback about how people felt at events after the fact. Did they feel safe? Did they feel that there was enough safety measures and planning in place afterwards? So learning continuously from past experiences. Now, he was asked repeatedly, Dan, about the time frame and when we can expect these measures to be implemented. And he says, while he fully accepts the intent of these recommendations, they do not specifically have a timeline in place right now.
That is true, though. In another follow-up, he mentioned they're trying to figure out how to best to implement them for events in 2025, not just in 2026. But you're right, no specific timeline for that, although he said as well, hoping to do this as soon as possible. And also noting no dollar figure when we mentioned, for example, number 4, support for event delivery and local capacity. And the province ought to consider expanding the availability of targeted grants. We know different events, and as the minister said, 2,000 events in the city of Vancouver alone, the largest in the province. But for different events, it's going to be a different costing for all sorts of things that may be implemented. Michelle Gassoub, thanks very much for joining us. Appreciate it. And thank you for joining us for this live special coverage on CBC News BC. You can find up-to-date information on our website and much more, cbc.ca/BC. I'm Dan Burritt. We will have this story for you and much more at 6. Thanks for joining us.